For once, this format was actually pretty decent. Hey guys, Sonic Smash right here, and the World's Qualifiers are done for this year, both in Speed and Rush formats. So, as usual with an event like this, you can expect the ban list to follow pretty quickly. So, it's predictions time, and I'm going to start this video off by pretty much focusing on Speed Duel. Rush Duel will be its own video, because I have a lot more to say about Rush Duel than I do about Speed. Honestly, this format, despite it being a 2-deck format that basically gatekept most of the format, was still a pretty good format. If you weren't running into stuff like Utopia, mainly Utopia, and Shadal, the latter being the better deck of the two by far, you were actually seeing a good amount of variety, but people were still unhappy with this, so they were playing the anti-reveal skill Psychic Visions with Live Twins or something, or cards that forced you to reveal your hand, which, I mean, go right ahead, I don't care too much about that. Anyway, the main thing to mention with this is that, with this in mind, honestly, the format was a little bit better than people think it is. It's significantly better than every other format we've had for a while now. There are still a couple of issues, but nothing we can't address, shall we? So I think, instead of focusing entirely on hitting the top decks of the format, since there isn't really much to do for that, the goal instead should be to remove non-interactive situations from the game. And let's start that off with the bans. Let's start things off by looking at the elephant in the room. Why is Catapult Turtle still legal? This thing is literally just here to cause FTKs. It's a huge problem. It shouldn't even be a thing. FTKs just are not healthy, plain and simple. Next up, we need Effect, Earth, and Flip, because I said this last time, and I will say it again. Guard Dog needs to be banned. It's a floodgate, and one that Shadal can use. Not okay. Do we have Demon related? We do not. Special summon, because it should be here somewhere. Because it's either dark or light, and I can never remember which it is. It's light. That still makes no sense to me. Where is it? I know you're here. Do I not have it? I'm pretty sure it's light at any rate. Ah yes, there we are, Summoner of Illusions. So, Catapult Turtle, Guard Dog, Summoner of Illusions, these all can't stay in the game. I know the FTK is gone, but I still think Lyrilists got wronged by losing access to their fusion, and I want to give them back access to that. In order to do this, you have to ban Summoner of Illusions outright, which is just what they should have done and called it a day. So with these three out, you can already see what we're trying to do here. And speaking of that, I think it is finally time for this to go as well. Kiteroid. This thing's a card trader card, it's not making the money, and it's just an unhealthy card in general whenever it comes up. This is just not okay. This one in particular is not okay. The others are, at least most of the time anyway, tied to their respective archetype, namely Battling Boxer Chief 2nd. True, Ancient Gear can search Constructor Train Signal Red and use that because of Gear Gigant X, I believe it is. Something like that. But Kiteroid is just way too easily splashable, and again, Gear Gigant X can search this too. So, that in mind, there is another one that needs to go, because honestly, it's an R rarity card. Why do you guys have this still in the game? It's not making you money. And, well, we are going to throw these guys a little bit of a bone because they're underperforming. Predaplant Drosophilum Hydra, I just think has to go at this point, and it's not even because of Predaplants being unhealthy because of it. Predaplants kind of suck right now, but in order to give them back a little bit of power, once again, something has to give, and that is Predaplant Drosophilum Hydra. I don't think you can safely give them more power without banning this. Next up, we go over to Spell Traps. We need Limited 1 and Limited 2. Because we have Xian Spy. This is causing yet another FTK with Utopia via Utopia Ray V. So this is a thing, this shouldn't be a thing, and just to nip this in the bud once and for all, just to stop them from having to ban Utopia Ray V, even though they can't do that, they can't limit 3 Utopia Ray V either. Ban Xian Spy just to stop the FTK from existing. And lastly, we have, of course, Hollowed Life Barrier and Rainbow Life. These two cards, again, are just stall cards. They're not making Konami money because they're free cards, rank tickets, and a level up reward respectively, so why would you freaking keep this at this point? It's not okay. It's not healthy for the game for these to stay. And at that point, there's only one other card I would consider banning. We need Field Spell, R rarity. So I should have this. Yes, I do. Fire Prison. Basically, stopping non-links from attacking, meaning you can just basically stop an entire battle phase until this thing gets removed. It's kind of a Mystic Mine in a sense right now. This should be banned, but I think right now it's going to potentially be Limited 1. If it becomes too relevant, it'll have to get banned. But Limited 1, I think, is just the perfect choice for it right now. Because, unlike Summon Breaker, this Floodgate can actually affect both sides of the field. But speaking of more limited ones, let's go back over to the monster side. Effect, Wind, and we need Limited 2 in this case. Because, if we're gonna throw the Birds of Bone, we have to take away the non-interaction as well. Cobalt Sparrow is not okay at this point. You'll see how I'm throwing the Birds of Bone later, even though it's pretty obvious. But again, if our goal is to remove non-interaction situations, untargetable Nightingale can no longer stay. I know Lyra lists aren't doing anything right now. Utopia is kind of the reason why they aren't doing anything. Free Numeron, Force Go, Burr. Although in that vein, Xyz, Light, Limited 2, but I forgot to get that filter off. And you're right down here. I know you're here. Ultimate Leo Utopia Ray. Yes, I did chronicle one of these. Some believe Pegasus Twin Saber and Numbers Protection should both go to 1 instead of Ultimate Leo. I think Ultimate Leo is the bigger problem here. Because just being able to have 2 of these on field means you're going to have 2 accesses to negates at any point in time. In addition to the fact that you can make them untargetable, make the Zex weapons indestructible, you play Lightning Blade, which we're not playing Lightning Blade right now because Pegasus Twin Saber is still that good. Pegasus Twin Saber is busted. It's an old structure deck card. At this point, I can see why it would go to Limited 1 along with Numbers Protection because, you know, Numbers Protection is free. But ultimately, Utopia Ray has been a problem for longer, and I think if you don't get rid of it now, if you don't limit 1 it now, it's only a matter of time before something else comes along, like Sharks for example, to abuse it again. So, I think of the 2 suggestions, I prefer going after Ultimate Leo Utopia Ray. That's just me, and this is somebody who ended up building all of Utopia by complete accident. This also takes reinforcement of the army out of the deck, meaning you have to play the triple Ascended Sage, triple Arm Sage, triple Astrotopia, but we're gonna get to more limits on Utopia a little bit later. Speaking of non-interaction, we need Continuous Spell. Not Ancient Gear Castle. Oh, I just don't have it. The card I'm referring to is Ancient Gear Fortress. How do I not have this, but I have Castle? What? So yeah, Ancient Gear Fortress makes all the monsters you summon that are Ancient Gears, during the turn you summon them, untargetable. And your opponent cannot respond to the effects with anything. This, to 1, clashes with Ancient Gear Duel, which means they can no longer play this, or they can no longer play Duel. They generally will be playing Duel over this because of the skill. So, honestly, you just take Fortress out of the deck altogether, and at that point, Ancient Gears are fine. Well, minus 1 hit I want to do to make sure they can't abuse limited 2s, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now, we need normal trap. I do believe it is our rarity. Different dimension round. This card just needed to go for a while now. I know that Dragonic Contact is not relevant right now, somehow. But, again, it's just one of those. It's just one of those where, as long as it's relevant, potentially, the Floodgate thing is just a real thing. It's a pain, and it just causes non-interaction, which is what we're trying to avoid. Lastly, for limited ones, we can't avoid hitting Shaddoll, and this is one of the first ways I would personally do it if, you know, the card is here. It's either a UR or it's an SR. But no, I think it's an R rarity, actually. How this is an R rarity for how busted it is, I will never know. Shaddoll, Schism. Schism is not okay. Fusion summoning on opponent's turn with materials from your graveyard by banishing them, which is really easy to do. And then sending one of your opponent's monsters to the graveyard, on top of probably making Winda through this, although we're going to be removing Winda anyway, spoiler warning, is not okay. Plus, this takes Super Poly out of the deck, which, you know, good. That's it for limited ones. On the limited 2s, and, you know, Konami hates the idea of doing limited 2s. But let's do Effect, Earth, and I believe the card in question is Dark. So, the first limited 2 that I want to do here is an oldie but goodie. An oldie but goodie that I apparently don't have. What the what the what over here? That's Armored Bitron, so I'm close to it. Ancient Gear Wyvern. So, mainly this is just to take limited 2s out of the deck so they can't search Constructor Train Signal Red, even though we're banning Kiteroid. There is another reason we're banning Kiteroid, we'll get to that later. So, Ancient Gear Wyvern, honestly, just because of the fact that it can search Ancient Gear Fusion, just mill from the deck to go Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, which is really stupid. That card is dumb. It is basically a win condition by itself. Most things in this game cannot run it over, not even Crystal Wing. It's just dumb. This needs to go to limited 2. Or, I wouldn't say needs to go to limited 2. This is mainly just to take limited 2s out of the deck. But the other card definitely needs to go to limited 2. And I know for a fact I have this. Where is... we need to get rid of Earth here. I believe it's level 4 as well. Yes, indeed. Shaddoll Squamata. When you mill this for stuff like Shaddoll Fusion, this is essentially a wild card. So you're essentially playing a 30-card deck with 27 cards in actuality. It's kind of dumb. This, to limit it to, at least make sure that they can't play the likes of Kiteroid or anything like that. Because Squamata is just that good. It is just that good. It's also a free Dark attribute for Winda. But again, we're removing Winda anyway. So, on the limited 3s, I was pretty harsh with Dinos last time, but I still stand by one thing. Dogoron the Mad Flame Kaiju, and especially Miscellaneousaurus to limited 3. Again, the goal is to get rid of as much non-interaction as possible, and Miscellaneousaurus causes non-interaction. Next up, the other hit to Utopia that I was talking about. Some considered Sexual Service Armed Sage because it's the oldest card of the 3, but I think you need to go after the most effective one of the bunch for these combos, and that's Astraltopia. Astraltopia, mainly you'd hit this to take limited 3s out, but also this card can search numbers protection by discarding double or nothing, which, you know, you're going to search and then never use to begin with anyway, unless you're trying to meme. But even then, the other thing to mention with Astraltopia is that it's just so easy to get out onto the field, even if you don't necessarily need it. It's such a dumb extender. It's so good. This can also search Exceed import if you put numbers protection to 1. Along with the Pegasus Twin Saber. I think we take the Pegasus Twin Saber, we don't play the numbers protection, and we just search Exceed import instead, which is really good in its own right. So, that said, Astraltopia to limited 3. Definitely. Now, me personally, where is DD Crow? This to limited 3. Honestly, maybe not DD Crow. Maybe not DD Crow in hindsight. But the one definite, especially right now, is going to be Nibiru the Primal Being. It is just one of those cards where if you leave this thing unchecked and you allow other decks to use it, it is going to become a problem. For the longest time, what balanced out Nibiru was that most decks could not play it. But now, most of the best decks in the format, if not both of the best decks in the format right now, can play it, and Utopia can even search it if they play Gallant Granite. What were they thinking adding Gallant Granite to the game again? Nibiru is just a poorly designed card in all honesty. So, next up, we need normal spell. You are rarity, and I think you know where this is going. We're going after Shaddoll Fusion. I think out of all the limited 3s you could do, like, true, it's not going to matter because Shaddolls can just get whatever card they want anyway. It's either you go for Shaddoll Fusion, or in hindsight, this might be the better one. Normal Trap. SR. I know for a fact this is SR because this was in a selection box for so long. Resh Shaddoll Incarnation. This might be the better choice, honestly. It's either Shaddoll Fusion or Resh Shaddoll Incarnation. I think it might actually in hindsight be Resh Shaddoll Incarnation. Either way, the goal is to take limited 3s out of the deck, and I think this might be the way to do it. It's also the oldest card among like the really strong cards that they could limit 3. I mean, Wendy's right there, but also they wouldn't be playing that many Wendy's to begin with. They always play the 3 Resh Shaddoll Incarnation, so we're just trying to take limited 3s out of the deck. That's all there is to it, really. So, next up, it's on Dispel Traps. Let's take a look, starting off with Field and Continuous. Let's get both of these out of the way at the same time. And I do not have either of these cards somehow. How? But anyway, the first card in question is Necro Valley. You know why at this point. You pretty much are going to know why at this point. But speaking of Floodgates, I think the better way to go about stopping this card from getting limited would be to nerf the skill that's abusing it. We'll get to that later. But if it ends up happening, the True Sun God might get limited 3'd. I would rather not do that. I would just straight up hit the skill that's abusing it outright. But it's only a matter of time before this gets used in another stall strategy anyway, so this might get limited 3'd, I'm not sure. That said, speaking of limited 3s, almost spell, and I believe this is either UR. If it's not, it's definitely SR. I don't see it. Okay, so it's an SR. Somehow. But I think you know where this is going. Neos Fusion, and there is a good reason for this. I will get to that a little bit later. Although, once again, trying to stop FTKs from happening, trade into 3. Pretty much, again, Raw Engine is a little bit broken. And lastly, we need Normal Trap. You are. Again, we're just trying to stop FTKs. We're trying to stop non-interaction as much as possible. This, on the other hand, should have never come off the list. Dogmatic Punishment. If you know the stall strats, if you know just Dogmatic Punishment in general, you understand why this card should have never come off the limited list. However, there are things that are coming off the limited list. A good number of things, in fact. At least for this prediction. Effect. Wind. Warrior. Elemental Hero Stratos. I do think this was not the hit to hit Dragonic Contact. I think the better hit was Neos Fusion. So, this coming off the list, it can help. I think it's deserved at this point that Stratos comes off. Neos Fusion would have to go to limited 3 though again. But nonetheless, what should have never been on the list in the first place in hindsight, Fusion, Light, Dragon, you know what it is. Dragon Maid Show. Show on its own is just not enough, and also Dragon Maids are just bad right now. They need help, and taking this off the list, it's time. It's genuinely time. Speaking of fusions, we need Wind. And not Warrior. I forgot I had the Warrior filter. Lyrilisk Independent Nightingale can come off the list with Summoner Evolutions banned. If they don't ban Summoner Evolutions, they can't take Nightingale off the list. Well, Independent Nightingale, rather. Speaking of fusions, though, if we're banning Drosophilum Hydra, we absolutely without a doubt, can take Predaplant Dragostapelia off the list. Now, as for spells, I specifically need field spells. Trickstar Light Stage, I think at this point can come off the list. I'm not entirely sure on that. They might have a reason for not doing it, I'm not sure. But Trickstar Light Stage, for the time being, I think can come off. If it can't, and it needs to go back to limited 1 after that, so be it. We only have 1 copy in the game in the first place, after all. Now, as for the other field spell, Megaroid City. The only reason this is limited 2 is because it can search Kiteroid. You ban Kiteroid, this can 1000% come off the list. This does not deserve to be here. Now, as for skill rebalancing, ooh, we're going to be here a while. So, I think the first one up to talk about should be really all of the Shaddoll skills. The main change, simply remove El Shaddoll Winda from the game. For Reign of Shadows, for Shadow Weaving Story, and for Shadow Weaving Power. All 3 of these skills need to lose Winda. That on its own would make Shaddoll so much more bearable. And so much less toxic, too. Because, let's be real here. Do you see what Winda's effect is? Yeah, it's a floodgate. So, that's the easy fix for that skill, for those skills. Just get rid of El Shaddoll Winda completely. Granted, I'd also prefer just getting rid of Shaddoll Schism, because that does not deserve to be here either. I just hate Shaddoll that much, mind you. So, next one I'm going to talk about, Stardust Acceleration, I still don't think is safe. Like, the fact that you can just play stuff like Dinos or Witchcrafters, not run any of the Yusei stuff in the main deck at all, or even the extra deck, mostly for that matter, not okay. You really should be forced to have Synchrons in the main deck. I, again, brought this up before. And no longer can you bring out fusion monsters. It's either Junk Synchron or Warrior Synchron monsters and Winter Light Synchron monsters in the extra deck. And also, I believe you need to include Warrior, Junk, and Synchron monsters in the main deck as well, as I mentioned before. And preferably no level 5 or higher monsters, I think it was. It's either level 5 or level 6. Either way, the whole goal is to take stuff like Nibiru out. The goal is to take, you know, most hand traps out. I mean, annoyingly, they can still play the likes of Effect Failure, Ghost Warner, Moonlit Chill, stuff like that, which Moonlit Chill wasn't intended, but Effect Failure was Yusei's card, so it kind of makes sense. Speaking of which, I've heard Effect Failure to 3 is a possibility, and I do think it very much could happen. But anyway, moving on. We're gonna have to look at some other characters for this here. So, I think we'll start off with Sherry. This will be just a simple nerf, because, you know, Revolution on the floor has just been power crept at this point. The deck must now, in addition to its requirement that it mentions here already, also contain at least 12 in combination of Fleur, Floral Knights, Light Noble Knights, and level 2 or lower tuner monsters, or at the very least, Floral Knights, Fleur, and Light Noble Knights. So this way, you are required to play Sherry's actual cards to some degree, so this way you can still play an engine to some degree, but not to the same extreme that we have now. Where you're hardly using any of Sherry's actual stuff, you're just splashing everything else into it. And just using the floor as an engine. So, small nerf, not that big of a deal. Dragonic Contact, I think, is overdue for one nerf specifically. And that is main deck restrictions. Can no longer contain monsters except for level 10 dragon monsters, Yubel, Elemental Hero, Neospatian, and monsters that mention Elemental Hero Neos or Neospatian in their text. And honestly, for good measure, the Wind Armed Dragon monster can no longer be treated as being special summoned by the effect of an Armed Dragon monster. At this point, Dragonic Contact is mostly, you know, irrelevant compared to everything else. I do think the Unresponsible Super Poly is a little bit broken, but the fact that we are getting, you know, Stratosophilus in exchange for Neos Fusion means the consistency is still a little bit weaker in the areas where it's cheesy. But the rest of it is still pretty much fine. Like, you take Armed Dragon, Thunder out of the deck, you take hand traps out of the deck, you take all that stuff out. And again, mostly, it would still be fine. If I'm being completely honest with you, it would still be fine. So, next up, Dinos. One simple nerf that is just A. The only thing I want nerfed about this. The skill can no longer turn an opponent's monster into a level 4 Dino. That's basically it. That's all there is to it. And of course, how can I forget Pendulum Rebellion? Required 9 at least of Performapal, Odd Eyes, or Magician Pendulum monsters. 9 or 10, one of the two. I'd prefer 10. Mainly just to stop them from just loading up on Sky Striker spam. That's really the only reason I'm saying this. That's like the main reason. Although, Vector's kind of doing the same thing. But he's a lot more fair about it because he isn't just mindlessly OTKing you on top of that unless he's playing Time Thief Hack. Which might get limited because of him, funny enough. Oh, man. That said, I also do think it's time for some skill buffs. Let's start things off with the weakest skill among, like, the 5Ds ones, I feel. Spell of Roses. Very simple skill, very outdated skill. I was considering doing, like, a Dragoon build with Rose Dragon, but at this point, it might not be worth it. Rose Dragons just, they're desperately in need of something new. We need Cross Rose Dragon, we need Red Rose Dragon, we need a new skill on these things, like, or at least an overhaul on Spell of Roses, but I don't know what they do. Rose Dragons deserve something here. And last but not least, Shooting Star Road Tech Genus Expansion. So, here's how I would do this. at the start of your first turn. Set Starlight Junction in from deck or hand to your field, and send one Jump Converter from your hand or deck to the graveyard. For every card you send from your hand, draw one additional card. So this way, you're not bricking by just drawing these two outright as their own thing. So you, at the very least, get to play the two cards without them being, locked away from you before you get a chance to use them, which is the problem with the original Shooting Star Road. The other thing is, allowing Synchro monsters that are light or wind with 3,000 attack points, not just 2,500, 3,300, or 4,000. 3,000 attack points as well, so you have access to the manga cards like Stardust. Well, Stardust Warrior is more of a modern support, but also Stardust Chronicle Spark Dragon, if I recall, was 3,000 attack. Let me double check that fact. Synchro, Light, Dragon. Yes, indeed, 3,000. So, there's that. Additionally, there's one other thing I do want to see change with the skill, and that is not requiring the only monster you control to be Stardust Dragon or a level 10 Synchro monster. Of course, you should still have to control one of those two to get the skill effect, but they should not have to be the only monster you control anymore. That fixes every single issue with this skill all at once. So, that is basically it. I'm not going to go over, all the prediction stuff again, because we'd be here way too long. I'm just going to instead show an image on screen, because I can actually do that with a video editor. The one card I was considering putting for Limited 3 for Speedroid, maybe, was Speedroid Target Tomboard, but they aren't performing that well by comparison to everything else in the format among the tiered decks. So I think of the four, that one's probably going to go untouched. So I'm going to show the final prediction list on screen right now with a video edit. This should not take very long. But with that, honestly, this format turned out pretty good. It has a couple of issues, but nothing too major. So we can instead focus on getting rid of things that are non-interactive for the game stage. And I think in that regard, that's actually a good thing. There really isn't much else to say. This format was pretty alright. It was kind of fun. But with that, I am out of time. So, until the Rush Panelist predictions, which is going to be a lot less positive to say the least, considering the format it's in. Later, guys. I am not looking forward to Rush.